mind, looking for a dime. James Locke in the house, gonna help you shine.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Poole Locke YouTube channel. I am James Locke. Today we're going to answer some Ask James questions of the day. First question is from Greg. He says, I'm not retired yet, and you say this growth first approach is really not that great, but I think the market is doing well, and I really want to take advantage of it. All right, Greg, you have FOMO. That's the fear of missing out. FOMO, my friend. And Greg, if you're not retired, you might have valid reasons for it. You may say, well, I need to get more growth. I just can't afford to retire today. And maybe you're willing to roll the dice. I guess that's a decision you have to make, but I'm going to assume that you have enough to retire, that you've saved enough, that you have enough points to win the game of life. So I've said before, and I've made the analogy before that, if that's the case, then what's problematic with you trying to squeeze out a few more points? You're trying to run the score up, right? And from a sports analogy, Greg, that sometimes you try and run the score up and you get a turnover. You get unexpected penalties, right? And those turnovers, let's be clear, when you're approaching retirement, recovering from these setbacks isn't as simple as when you were younger and still had a steady paycheck coming in. The next thing in running up the score is the score may get run up against you. And that can happen. In fact, that happened to people many times. Imagine, for example, that we were sitting here in the late 90s, right? Now I'm going to pick an extremely bad period just to illustrate an example, Greg, but let's say you did this in the late 90s. What's particularly relevant is that during this time, many investors ignored the importance of building an income foundation, focusing solely on growth potential. So we're having this conversation, you're trying to squeeze a little bit more out of the markets, but then 2000 comes in, boom, the bubble bursts. Stock market goes down, and the stock market was underwater for 13 years. It took until 2012 for the markets to get back to where it was at the beginning of the year of 2000. Now, during this period, those who had built reliable income streams through dividend-paying stocks, bonds, other income-producing investments were in a much better position than those purely focused on growth. So now for 13 years, you have got to sit there. You're underwater. You've got to decide, do I want to retire with less money? Do I want to work 13 more years? Do I want to go back to, do I want to go back to work, get a part-time job? What do I want to do? And so that's what you're gambling with here. If you have enough points to win the game of life, now there's really no upside if you do win more, except maybe if you're performance-minded, that's it, right? But Greg, I often talk about purpose versus performance, right? And I encourage people not just to be performance-based. It worked for you all this time up until your retirement, where you thought about, I just want to get return. I want to maximize my total return, irrespective of where it comes from, income or growth. But now I encourage you to make the paradigm shift, to be purpose-based. Consider this: a well-structured income portfolio can still provide growth potential while giving you the security of a reliable income stream that can help you sleep at night. And if the purpose is money in retirement income, say in the next 10 years, well, then that is exactly why I think the FOMO could hurt you. Right? Instead of chasing market returns, consider focusing on building a diversified income portfolio that includes dividend-growing stocks, high-quality bonds, other income-producing investments that can provide both stability and potential growth. So hopefully you can do whatever it takes to cure the FOMO. Remember, successful retirement isn't about maximizing returns. It's about creating reliable, sustainable income that will last throughout your retirement years. So Thanks for sending in your question, Greg. That was an awesome question. If you would like to send in your question like Greg did for me to answer, you can email it to poollocke@poollocke.com. All right, moving on to our second question here for the day is from Brad. And he asks, what you're saying really does make a lot of sense, but I've talked to several financial advisors and no one sounds like you do. Why not? Shocker, right, Brad? Unfortunately, they're all saying the same thing for the most part. Why don't they talk income first, growth second? There's a lot of reasons why. Let's put it in a few categories. Number one, most of the research is biased toward what makes more money for the firm, and that's part of it. The traditional assets under management model often incentivizes advisors to focus on growth because they earn more when portfolios grow larger, rather than when they generate stable income. Number two, I think being an income specialist really takes more work. It takes greater bandwidth. To truly understand income investing, you need to analyze individual securities, understand complex bond markets, evaluate dividend sustainability, and create diversified income streams that can weather different market environments. So it takes greater bandwidth. Whether you're talking greater bandwidth of people, more manpower, perhaps a higher level of knowledge when it comes to investment markets. So when it comes to maybe technology expense, right? So it takes more research time, more research knowledge, more technology expense. Most advisors just don't have the bandwidth to do that. Think about it. It's much easier to just recommend a standard growth portfolio than to construct a carefully balanced income strategy that needs to provide reliable monthly payments. But I think the biggest thing is that people, again, they get their research from their firms or from firms that maybe that they're loosely affiliated with, and those researchers are skewed toward the profit motives of whatever it is, right? Those firms sell or specialize in. Most of these research departments are focused on total return metrics rather than income generation, which can lead to very different investment recommendations. As a result, those advisors unwittingly aren't getting unbiased research. They're often working with what I call the Wall Street playbook, right? Standard growth-oriented strategies that may not align with retirees' actual needs for reliable, consistent income. The income first approach requires a complete mindset shift from both the advisor and the client. I often get questions similar to this one, Brad, and have to bring up the fact that different advisors have different business models, and that's why most don't sound like we sound right here in the Retirement Income Source, right? Different compensation structures can influence investment recommendations, and the income first approach, while more work, it's definitely work intensive, often will better serve retirees' actual needs. So Brad, make sure you keep listening to all the Ask James questions that I respond to on this show. I think over time you will find a lot of information around the details of why this happens and explore how to evaluate whether an advisor truly understands income investing and has the expertise to help you build a sustainable retirement income strategy. As more and more baby boomers transition into retirement and need reliable income strategies rather than just growth-focused portfolios, understanding the paradigm shift of moving to an income first, growth second investment approach is critical. Awesome questions. If you would like to have your question answered, you can send it in. Email it to poollocke@poollocke.com. If you like what you heard today, go ahead, like and subscribe to our channel. I would appreciate it. I am James Locke, your retirement income source. Talk with you all soon.
Money on my mind, looking for a dime. James Locke in the house, gonna help you shine. Retirement is near, don't you live in fear. Listen up, my friend, let me make it clear. Savings in the bank.